Hey folks, welcome back. I'm David. We're here in my shop where I build E-War guitars. This is going to be episode number 4 of my scratch build entry into the GGBO 2022. And if you've been following along so far, you'll know we've got the neck blank made up last week, and I want to let this thing set for a little while and let any movement that's going to happen in this wood happen. And so that means it's time to move on to the body blanks. And I'm going to be doing a similar thing, like we've got this combination of bloodwood and maple veneer in here and wenge to make up the neck. We're going to do the same combination of woods in the body blanks. Now this is a neck through design, so I'm going to make 2 separate wings of the guitar. And what we're going to do is I'm going to use this wenge, and this is a 2-inch thick piece of wenge. We're going to split this down the middle. We're going to resaw it down the middle, plane off all the edges. And then we're going to do a series of light, dark laminations with both maple veneer, very thin maple veneer, and some pieces of this bloodwood that are going to be as thin as I can make it. Now I got the piece in the neck down to about a 1/16 of an inch thick, and I'm going to try to get that, or even a little bit thinner if I possibly can. I'm going to resaw them on my bandsaw, but then I'm going to surface them down to the proper thickness, or as thin as we can get it, on my CNC machine over there with a surfacing bed. And the front and the back is going to be this great looking quilted maple right here, which I think is going to look really awesome. I'm going to cut these down to a 1/4 inch, possibly more. Just it really depends on how thick the core of the body becomes. And then I'll know how thick I'm going to make them. I'd like it to be around a 1/4 inch, so when I do the contours and everything in the body, it'll expose these veneers that are running through the center of the thing. So I'm not really sure how thick to cut this maple at this point. So I really need to, I believe, cut this core wood down in the middle, go ahead and make up all my laminations to it, glue my laminations to the core piece, and then I'll be able to determine how thick to make my quilted maple front and back to ultimately have an 1 3/4 inch thick guitar, which will match my neck. Anyway, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and carry this over to the bandsaw, resaw it down, start to surface it, and just see where we go from there.
You look up with those angel eyes. I remember what I'm fighting for. Oh, the victory cannot be denied. You're the fire in my bones. Oh, the song upon my soul. And I gotta let the whole world know. Every day when the sun rises, I feel love beating down my door. Every night when the moon is shining, I pray you'll be coming back for more.
Okay, so these 2 guys came out really nice. The 2 pieces of wenge, I've got them completely surfaced on both sides. They came out right at 15/16 of an inch thick, which is, I couldn't be happier with that. I'm just quite pleased. Nice and flat. I've got a bunch of machining marks on this, which I'll run it through my surface sander probably, or maybe just a block sand it too to get rid of those. But I think they're in good shape, nice and flat and ready to go, and 15/16 of an inch thick. So the next thing I've got to do is I've got to tackle this bloodwood. I've got 2 pieces like this. These are about 6 1/4 by 18.5 inches long. And let me show you how I have to surface these off and get them flat on both sides first before I could start trying to resaw them down and get some veneers out of this. So, which I'm a little nervous about. I think it's going to be kind of tough to do. But anyway, let me point this camera down here onto the CNC machine and show you how I'm going to handle that. Okay, so here's this bloodwood. It's 4/4, so it's right at an inch thick right now. And when I put it down here, I'll show you. Now it doesn't rock that way, but this way, that thing rocks like crazy. I hope you can see that on the video. But anyway, so I've got to get that flat. I want to flatten both surfaces of this thing because I want to then proceed with trying to get 4 equal thickness pieces out of this, resaws out of the thing, where I have 4 pieces, maybe 1/8 of an inch thick or so to start with. But to do that, I've got to get this thing flat, and that thing's really rough. So I'm going to use my surface planer, the surfacing bit in my CNC machine. But first I have to get this stabilized where it's not going to move around on me. So to do that, I've got these 2 sticks I have here, and they're thin tapered pieces. They go from about 1/8 of an inch down to almost nothing. And you can see I have little graduation marks on here. Every inch I put another mark on the thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the high side here, or the side that's off on this side, and slip it in. And this is the other corner that's leaning. I'm going to slip this one in here. And I want to slip those tapers in equal amounts, so the top of this board is as equalized as possible on this thing, to where I don't have any rock. And I don't have any rock that way, and I don't have any rock that way. And I'm about a 1/2 inch in on each one of these things. So that's probably its most equal surface with the surface of the CNC machine. So I think that's pretty good height to go with. So I'm now just going to basically clamp a board up against the edge of this thing, clamp it down, and run my surfacing bit back and forth at 5/1000ths of an inch each pass, and just keep going until I have this face completely surfaced off and smooth. Then I'll flip it over on the other side, and I'll start that same process over again, and I'll keep going back and forth on it until that second side is surfaced as well.
I know the answer will not be denied. Every day when the sun rises, I feel love beating down my door. Every night when the moon is shining, I pray you'll be coming back for more. And every day when the sun rises, I feel love beating down my door. Every night when the moon is shining, I pray you'll be coming back for more.
Okay, so that didn't come out too bad at all. I've got it nicely surfaced on both sides, and I've joined up the bottom edge to be square with the 2 faces. Because what I'm going to do now, I'm going to attempt to resaw this in as many pieces as I possibly can. I'm probably going to set it at about 1/8 of an inch each time. I'll probably mark the top at 1/8 of an inch each time, and I'm going to do my best. This is really super dense wood, and I'm not quite sure how my bandsaw is going to handle it, but I'm going to do my best to get it, because I want to cut them as thin as I can. Then I'm going to lay them back down on the CNC machine and thin them down as thin as I could possibly get it, because after all, I want them to look like veneers when they're all said and done. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and double-sided sticky tape this onto this little holding jig I got here, which is just something that's going to help me hold it straight. I'll mark the top edge, and I'll try to follow it through on the bandsaw blade as best as I can. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and surface down this other piece of bloodwood I have, which I'll need this. I need 8 of these pieces all together, so I'm going to need both. But you can see how cupped up that is. So I'm going to be laying this down on the CNC machine and cutting that, or flattening it off rather, at the same time I'm cutting this. So anyway, I'm going to do my best, and let's see how it comes out. Okay, so I just want to show that real quick. I think that went, I'm pleased. I think it went very well. I have a fairly uniform thickness. It goes, I just measured with my calipers, and it goes anywhere from 3/32 up to 7/64. So it's under 1/8 of an inch, and it's for the most part, and it is pretty darn uniform. So I should be able to now, this side's already been surfaced, I should be able to stick it down to my CNC machine, and once I get several of them, because I want to do them all at the same time, once I get several of them together, I think I ought to take a couple of 5/1000ths of an inch pass on this thing and get it really nice and flat and get it thinner. I may get it down to even a 1/16 of an inch thick. Anyway, so what I've got to do now is I'm going to go ahead. The back side of this has still been surfaced from before. I'm going to set this back on the CNC machine and surface this off again, and then cut another, resaw another piece off, because I always want one side of the resawed piece to be surfaced on one side. So, and I'm keeping this side so I can constantly have a flat parallel surface each time to stick down the CNC machine. But anyhow, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to surface this back off, take off another one, and just kind of keep going until I have 8 of them. I need 8 altogether. Anyway, I'm pretty pleased.
Close your eyes and let down your defenses. You are safe here now in the Father's love. Rest your heart, let the mercy take you over. You are home here now in the Father's love. Never will I walk away.
So I think these guys came out okay. It took a little trial and error to figure out the best, fastest way to do it. And what I wound up doing was, so I took the original board that was a 1-inch thick rough sawn piece of lumber, and I shimmed it up on the CNC machine like I showed you, and I surfaced the one side and I ran it at 5/1000ths of a pass until it got down to where it was all perfectly level. And then at first I flipped it over on the CNC machine and did the same exact thing on the other side. And after a while, that's kind of a slow moving thing to do. So on the second board, what I did was I surfaced one side just like I did the first one. Then I took it over to the plane, flipped it over to where the surface side was down in the bed of the plane, and then just planed it off, and that worked really well. And then I would mark it. You know, I marked it with this guy right here. I went ahead and cut a slice off, and every time I took a slice off, I just took the remaining piece that I was still cutting slices off of and ran it through the planer again. So I constantly had one surface side in each of these boards, and that worked pretty well. It was a pretty quick thing to do. This second board, I probably had it all cut up in 30 or 40 minutes, as opposed to the first one was probably an hour, because I kept going back to the CNC machine and resurface off that face. But the planer seemed to work absolutely fine for that. And so I think it worked out pretty well. So what I have to do now is I'm going to go ahead. I want to finish thinning these down because they're 3/32, and I want them thinner. I want them no more than a 1/16. Hopefully I get it under a 1/16. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 at a time. I've got this piece of MDF. It's around, I don't know, 14 inches wide and a little over 3 feet long. And I'm going to double-sided sticky tape these down to this piece of MDF and run them through. I've got all the bandsawed sides facing up, and the other sides have all been surfaced down with the either the CNC machine or the plane. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to stick these on here, try to get them to lay flat if I can, and run them through the surface sander until I get it down as thin as I can, and then I'll flip them over. And I'll do it again on this side to make sure both sides are just a nice sanded surface. And hopefully I'll get them nice and thin without tearing them. And I'm going to use double-sided sticky tape for this and not the glue trick with the CA glue and the masking tape, because the double-sided sticky tape doesn't stick quite as well. And I think it's, once these get really thin, I think it's going to be difficult to peel them off without tearing them up. So anyway, that is what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and stick these down, run them through that sander, and see how we do.
Every morning when you wake, you see my light still shining, and you know you're safe here in the Father's love. Let the mercy take you over. You are home here now, in the Father's love. Never will I walk away, for nothing brings me pleasure more than just to sit and stay close to you.
Okay, so I'm pretty pleased with the way those came out. I have a nice consistent 3/64 of an inch. It was starting to get so thin, you could see right here that that guy started cracking a little bit, and I just kind of wanted to stop there. A little thinner would have been nice, but I think that's pretty good. 3/64 is not bad. Just a little over a 32nd of an inch. Anyway, I've also got, in that one board I cut up, I have this ugly spot here on it. I'm just going to have to make sure that that ugly spot goes in a spot in the body to where when I cut it out, because all we're going to see is the edge of this thing, that gets buried inside somewhere where you can't see it. So I'm just going to have to be conscientious of that as I start to glue these things up. But anyway, I'm going to show you how I've decided to glue this up. Oh, I also have I've got my maple veneer here too, which is super thin. That was purchased. I think this is 40/1000ths of an inch thick. So anyway, I've got that too, but let me turn this camera down and show you how I'm about to start preparing to glue these two wings up. Okay, so this is basically how these things are going to glue up. I've got my my veneers on the outside, so I got my bloodwood, maple, wenge, maple, bloodwood. Okay, because the veneers are on the outside, I've got to have a way to hold those perfectly flat across the entire surface of the wenge. So I've cut up some pieces of MDF here that are the same size as the blank is going to be. These are 6 1/4 by 18 1/2. My blank has to be 6 by 18, and once they're glued up, I'll go ahead and trim up the edges so I got a nice square flat piece. But anyhow, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to layer my pieces on like so, put the other piece on top, and then clamp them up as a great big sandwich, and that MDF should apply equal pressure all the way around the veneers on both sides. So like I talked about before, I've got this ugly spot in here that I want to make absolutely sure does not wind up getting into an area that's going to get cut out where it would expose that. So I've got to determine which side each one of these blanks is going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start labeling these, and this is going to be the treble side bottom, which means the guitar is going to be like this, something like that, in that general shape. In other words, this is going to be the bottom bout. Here's the horn up here. When I lay these pieces in, they should bury right in here, right in that bottom bout. And I think that's going to work good. So that's what I have to do. Another thing I want to do too is determine on my wenge, when the wenge is all done, I want to be able to see the end grain on the wenge to be opposite of the other side of the body. So let me lay those two guys up here right now. Let me see here. Okay, right now those are going the same direction, so let me try flipping it. Okay, now they're V'ing together. Let's see. See, they'll V together. So in the finished body, you'll look at the edge of the guitar and you'll see they V together. So I need to label this. Okay, so if I want that in the middle, I need to make this one the treble side, and this one the bass side. Am I right on that? Yes. So this is going to be treble side. Let me get my white pencil. Treble side, and this is the top. And this will be the bass side, top. Okay? And this is going to be the bass bottom. So that's how the wenge is going to go. And when it's all said and done, I should be able to cut this up and have it look right. Okay, let me slide these guys next to each other and visually look to be sure the wenge, and everything else for that matter, is lined up properly. So I've got my veneers and the wenge both going in this direction. I like that. I go from light, dark, 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 light, dark. Okay, that's good. I'm going to go ahead and okay. So that is the orientation of all of the laminates and the core. Okay, now I'm going to need to drill in 2 indexing pins into each one of these wings to kind of help hold all this together, because there's a lot of pieces. There's 9 pieces in each one, and especially with those veneers, they could get real squirrely on you trying to glue this stuff up. So I'm going to use an 11 millimeter drill bit, which is just a little bit bigger than this 3/8 dowel rod I have, and I'm going to drill one probably right up in this area here, right on near the edge. So this would be in the wrist relief, basically on the treble side, and way down here in this corner too, because I know both of these spots are going to get completely cut off and discarded. So same thing on the base side. I'm going to come in over here, right in this area right here with one, and down in this corner over here, like so. Okay, so I'm set to go. I've got both halves of the guitar body here. I've got my board set up. I got a little wax paper out here. I've got my little dowel set to go, and I've got my glue. I use a different glue than you see a lot of times. I use this UltraCat. It's a pre-catalyzed, let me see. It's a PPR glue, so it's a pre-catalyzed powder resin, and it's a powder glue. I like it. It's supposed to have great bonding strength, and I get it from the place I buy my veneers from. And I'm going to mix up 1.5 cups. So that's a 1/2 cup. I always think I'm mixing too much glue, and I usually get right down to the end where I have just barely enough. There's another 1/2, so that's 1 cup. I've got to spread it on 18 pieces. Each one's about 6 1/4 inches wide by 18.5 inches long. There's 1.5 cups. And I'm going to use this little foam spreader right here. This is, I get it from the same company I buy the glue from. And I got my little silicone brush here too. So anyway, where's the lid? I think I'm going to do one of these at a time. I've got enough open time. It says 20 to 40 minutes of open time with the glue. So I think I'm going to go ahead and try to glue one up first, get it together before I move on to the other one, because as soon as these pieces start laying down with glue on them, that veneer will start to curl on you. So I'm going to work as quickly as I can and to get one of them together, get it clamped up, and then move on to the next one. So I've got about 4 ounces of warm water here, which is what they recommend right there. And then I could add more water as I go too. And I'm using one of these mixing paddles, which is also what they recommend. I got to mix it for 3 to 5 minutes, let it sit, add water if I need to, and then start gluing. And hopefully everything goes well.
For nothing brings me pleasure more than just to sit and stay close to you. Every morning when you wake, you'll see my light still shining, and you know you're safe here in the Father's love. Rest your heart, let the mercy take you over. You are home here now in the Father's love. Never will I walk away, for nothing brings me pleasure more than just to sit and stay close to you.
right, so that's it. These guys are done. This is now the core of the guitar I was trying to explain during this whole video. But I'm very happy with the way it came out. I got really nice thicknesses on my bloodwood, and it sets it off really nicely with the maple in between. I think it looks great. And I got the grain lined up really nice on that Wenge, so you'll see it on the end of the guitar. It V's together in the middle. And the thickness came out good too. I'm just under 1.25 inches thick, which is really what I was hoping to get, which means I'll be able to resaw this guy in two and book match it for the top. And then I'll resaw this one in two and book match it for the bottom. And both these are the same board, so I think that's kind of cool too, that the face and the back are going to be cut right out of the same board. So anyway, so I think that's it for this video. I think that's it for now. We did a lot of work on this. Next week when we come back, we're going to go ahead and we're going to resaw down our tops. We're going to get those surfaced to the right thickness. And I'm going to chamber these bodies before I cut them out. So we're going to do that on the CNC machine. And we're probably going to do some other work to the inside of the tops on the CNC machine too before we glue them on. But anyway, I hope you all come back and check that out next week. In the meantime, God bless you, and you all have a wonderful week.